On a cold Denver night, the police station was quiet. Just humming radios, shuffling papers, and tired officers waiting for dawn. But everything changed when a massive German shepherd staggered through the front doors, carrying a little girl in a pink pastel coat on his back. His legs shook, his fur was torn, and yet his eyes burned with a desperate mission. Officers froze, guns lowered. No one understood how this injured police dog had found a missing child, or why he refused to let anyone touch her. Within seconds, the calm station erupted into chaos, and what this broken hero was about to reveal would shake Denver to its core. If you want to know how a single K9 risked everything to save a child and expose a hidden danger in the city, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because this is a story you won't forget. Denver, at the edge of winter, had a way of swallowing sound. The city sat beneath a sky the color of steel, and a biting wind curled down the long, empty avenues, threading between high-rise buildings like an invisible serpent searching for something to claim. Streetlights flickered in the cold, their halos trembling above patches of frozen pavement. Even the passing cars seemed quieter at this hour, as if the entire city had learned to hold its breath against the harshness of the night. Inside the Denver Police Department's central station, the atmosphere was a sharp contrast. Bright white fluorescent lights hummed overhead, reflecting off polished tiles, and the chatter from radios blended with the shuffle of paper reports. It was late enough that most officers were on autopilot, surviving their shifts with lukewarm coffee and worn-out patience. No one expected anything strange to happen on a night like this, until the doors slammed open with a sudden, startling force. The first person to react was Officer Raymond Holt, a tall man in his mid-40s with a broad chest, deep-set eyes, and a beard showing streaks of early gray. Years of service had carved hard lines along his jaw and eyes, and the weariness in his shoulders revealed a man who had seen too much, but still showed up every day, steady as stone. His coffee cup nearly fell from his hand as he gasped, because what entered the station was something no training manual had prepared him for. A massive German shepherd dragged himself across the threshold, paws slipping on the tile as he fought to stay upright. His coat, once thick and proud, was caked with mud and dust, and streaks of dried blood clung to his hind leg. He limped heavily, every step trembling with exhaustion, and draped across his broad back, as if she were a fragile doll he refused to let go of, was a little girl of no more than 8 or 9. She was tiny, delicate, with tangled strands of pale blonde hair matted against her forehead. Her skin was pale, too pale, and her small hands hung limp at her sides. She wore a pastel-pink coat, or what remained of one, the fabric torn, smeared with dirt, leaves, and patches of dried blood. Her face, though lovely beneath the grime, carried a haunting stillness that made the room's temperature drop several degrees in an instant. "Oh my God! Is she breathing?" Raymond shouted. His voice cracked through the room like a lightning strike. Chairs screeched. Radios fell silent. 2 younger officers rushed forward. Officer Dylan Brooks, a rookie of just 24 with messy brown hair and a heart that still bruised easily, and Officer Sarah Whitfield, a tall, slender woman with warm brown eyes and a calm, almost motherly presence. Sarah had joined the force after her younger sister went missing years ago. Though her sister was never found, the tragedy carved a softness inside her that allowed her to comfort others even in chaos. But the moment they moved, the dog lunged, forward just enough to force them to stop. His lips curled, revealing sharp teeth, but the growl that rumbled from his chest was not a threat. It was a warning filled with fear, desperation, and a strange human-like plea. Do not hurt her. Do not take her. Help her carefully. That's enough. Back up, Raymond barked, raising a hand. The dog remained in position, legs shaking violently, but his body angled protectively to shield the little girl from every person in the room. It was the stance of a guardian who had given everything he had left, and was ready to give more if needed. That was when Emily Carter stepped out from behind the front desk. Emily, 30 years old, moved with a gentleness that seemed out of place in a precinct hardened by crime and long nights. She was of average height, with soft brown hair pulled into a neat ponytail, a strong jawline, and skin kissed by the sun, despite how often she worked indoors. Her uniform fit snugly, navy blue and crisp, her badge polished to a shine. She took pride in every detail. Emily was known for her empathy, a rare trait that made hardened suspects confess and terrified victims unclench their fists. She approached the dog with slow, measured steps. "It's okay," she whispered, voice soft as falling snow. "Hey, buddy. I'm not here to hurt her. I'm here to help." The dog's breathing hitched. His ears flicked. Mud-stained fur rose and fell with each labored breath as he struggled to stay conscious. Emily kneeled inches away, palms open, letting him smell her. His nose quivered, and for a moment his eyes, dark, intelligent, and glazed with exhaustion, met hers. The moment of trust, fragile yet profound, passed between them. "It's all right," Emily continued. "Let me take her." With a sound like a defeated whine, the dog lowered his head and shifted slightly so Emily could gently lift the girl off his back. Emily gathered the unconscious child into her arms, feeling the weight of her tiny body and the faint rise and fall of her chest. Then a gust of cold air from the hallway stirred a loose sheet of paper on the bulletin board. It fluttered, flipped, and fell face up onto the floor right beside Raymond's boot. He bent down, picked it up, then froze. On the page was a missing child report. The photo showed a little girl in a pastel-pink coat, smiling brightly beneath golden hair that shimmered under sunlight. Emily held the girl tighter. Raymond stared at the report. Officers exchanged horrified glances. And the dog. The dog simply lowered himself onto the cold tile, as if he had finally reached the last place he needed to be. But the girl in Emily's arms still did not wake up, and no one yet knew how the dog had found her, or what horrors they had escaped. The temporary medical room inside the Denver Police Department had always smelled faintly of antiseptic and cold metal, but tonight the air felt heavier, thicker, like it carried the weight of something unsaid. Emily Carter moved quickly but gently as she laid the unconscious little girl onto the narrow examination table. The pastel-pink coat, torn, dirty, soaked in fear, was carefully lifted away, revealing small arms mottled with dark bruises and rope marks. No one in the room mistook those for accidents. They spoke a silent, chilling story. Officer Raymond Holt lingered near the doorway, his broad shoulders casting a shadow that stretched across the room. His jaw clenched as he took in the injuries. For all his hardness, Raymond had a protective streak rooted in a childhood where he had been the eldest of 5 siblings, often shielding them from their father's unpredictable temper. Seeing a child hurt always woke something fierce in him, something he had spent years trying to tame. Tonight, that old feeling returned. Officer Sarah Whitfield, her tall, slender figure almost ghost-like under the harsh white lights, gently adjusted the thin pink blanket over the girl. Sarah's warm brown eyes softened even more as she brushed a strand of blonde hair from the child's forehead. She had once been a big sister. She still was, in her heart, even though her own sister never came home. That grief had shaped Sarah into a woman who moved with quiet strength, ready to comfort others the way she had once wished someone had comforted her. Valor stood at the doorway like a statue carved from mud and pain. The German shepherd, roughly 8 years old, judging from his size and the subtle whitening around his muzzle, was built powerfully. Broad chest, sturdy legs. But tonight his body shook with exhaustion. His fur, normally a glossy mix of black and tan, had lost its sheen beneath layers of dirt. His breath came in rough, uneven pulls, as if every inhale required him to gather leftover fragments of strength. Yet despite all this, Valor refused to lie down. He planted himself squarely between the medical bed and the exit, blocking anyone he didn't trust from approaching too quickly. A knock sounded at the door before it swung open to reveal Dr. Martin Reyes, a veterinarian in his early 50s. He was a compact man with salt and pepper hair and a gentle face marked with laugh lines and a lifetime of patience. Martin was known around Denver PD for his calm, fatherly nature. He had spent 25 years patching up police dogs and stray animals alike, a career that began after he lost his own childhood dog in an accident. Since then, healing creatures like Valor had become his life's quiet mission. Martin knelt slowly in front of the dog. "Easy, boy," he murmured, his voice low and warm. "I'm just here to help." Valor's dark eyes flicked toward Emily for reassurance. She stepped closer, placing a steady hand on the dog's shoulder. "It's okay," she whispered. "He's with us." Only then did Valor allow Martin to raise the handheld microchip scanner. As the device passed near the dog's neck, a soft beep broke the silence. Martin's eyes widened. "K9 Valor," he read aloud. "Reported missing 3 weeks ago during a wilderness search operation." Emily exhaled sharply. "You didn't run. You've been out there working alone." Valor lowered his head, a soft whine escaping him. His gaze drifted immediately back to the child under the blanket, the girl he had guarded with a devotion so fierce it seemed almost human. Dylan Brooks entered then, breathless from running errands. The young officer had boyish features, freckles scattered across his nose, and an earnestness that made him seem younger than his years. He had joined the force driven by an eagerness to prove himself, though his gentle nature sometimes clashed with the harsh realities of police work. He froze when he saw the child's injuries. His Adam's apple bobbed heavily. "Someone did this," he whispered. Before Emily could respond, Valor stiffened. The shift was instant. His ears pricked forward, tail dropping low, muscles tightening beneath his battered frame. A deep growl vibrated through his chest, a sound not of aggression, but urgent warning. Martin froze mid-reach. Sarah stepped back. Even Raymond straightened, instincts pulling him into alert mode. "What's he sensing?" Dylan whispered. Emily followed Valor's gaze. His eyes were locked on the darkened hallway beyond the open doorway. A camera screen hung on the wall outside, its small, grainy display flickering with static. For a moment, nothing seemed out of place. Then Valor took one shaky step forward. Another. His growl deepened, throat rumbling like distant thunder trapped inside a wounded body. Emily moved toward the hall, her boots creating sharp echoes against the tile. The station had grown unnaturally quiet, as though the building itself was listening. A breeze slipped underneath the back exit door at the end of the hallway, pushing a loose paper across the floor in a slow, eerie slide. Raymond joined her, his hand resting near his holster. With every step, Tension climbed the walls like creeping frost. Valor limped to her side despite his injuries, refusing to be separated from the threat he sensed. Emily glanced down at him. "It's okay. I'm here." But Valor's eyes told her she was wrong. Something was out there. Something close. Something that had followed the girl. And as Valor locked his gaze on the rear entrance of the station, a low roar built in his chest. Not of fear, but of promise. A promise to defend the child again, even if it cost him the last breath he had left. The Denver night deepened into something almost primeval as Emily Carter and her team stepped into the cold air behind the station. The wind carried the earthy scent of damp pine and the distant hum of city traffic, a strange mix of wilderness and urban life colliding under the sickle moon. The tension that Valor sensed in Chapter 2 had not faded. If anything, it had sharpened, vibrating through the air like a taut string on the verge of snapping. Officer Raymond Holt took point as they crossed the back lot. His imposing frame cast long shadows over the pavement, and the steady set of his jaw revealed a man ready for confrontation. Years of growing up in a violent home, shielding siblings from fists and shouting, had built inside him a fierce instinct to defend the vulnerable. Tonight, that instinct radiated from every stiff step he took. Beside him moved Sarah Whitfield, tall and slender beneath her navy uniform, her face pale under the moonlight, but her brown eyes alert. The memory of her lost sister flickered behind those eyes. She understood the urgency of searching for a child, even a child she had never met. Her long dark hair, tied back neatly, fluttered in the cold air with each determined stride. Valor limped close to Emily, his gait uneven but unwavering. Even injured, the 8-year-old German shepherd held the carriage of a soldier, head low, ears pricked, nose twitching as he caught scents the humans could not detect. His patched and bandaged leg dragged slightly behind him, but he refused to fall behind. His purpose was greater than the pain. Emily led him gently to the police SUV. Though she was known for her calm demeanor, her heartbeat thudded hard beneath her vest. She placed a firm yet tender hand on Valor's back as she opened the rear hatch. "You're coming," she murmured, though they both knew he would have come even if she'd tried to stop him. Emily herself was steady, but what she had seen in the girl's injuries had ignited a fierce resolve. No child deserved what had been done to the girl in the pink coat. A new officer arrived as the team prepared to move. Officer Joseph Langford, a man in his early 30s with sandy blonde hair, square jaw, and a build that spoke of military training. His blue eyes were sharp and restless, always scanning, always calculating. He had served 2 tours overseas before joining the force, and the battlefield had carved both discipline and ghosts into him. He was quiet, efficient, and trusted by everyone, even if he rarely smiled. "Backup's on its way," Langford reported, voice low but steady. "But if the suspect's close, we need to move fast." Emily nodded. "Then we'll move fast." Valor raised his head, nose twitching toward the pink coat folded beside Emily in the vehicle. The scent triggered a low, urgent whine, and his entire body tensed. Emily saw it, the recognition, the need to protect, and she closed the hatch gently. Minutes later, the Sapkamisamas-on SUV barreled down the narrow service road that led into the wooded outskirts behind the station. The forest loomed like a wall of black shapes, broken only by silver slashes of moonlight. The instant Emily opened the hatch, Valor leaped out, stumbling but determined, and lowered his nose to the ground. He walked a few paces, sniffed, then stopped. His tail stiffened. He growled, low, guttural, certain. He's got the trail, Raymond murmured. The team followed Valor as he led them down a narrow, root-twisted path disappearing into the darkness. Their flashlights cut through the shadows in jittering arcs, illuminating branches, underbrush, and patches of disturbed soil. Then Sarah spotted it. A piece of frayed rope caught on a thorn bush. When she lifted it with a gloved hand, strands of pale pink fabric clung to the fibers. "The girl's coat," she whispered. A few steps farther, Dylan Brooks, a little jumpy but earnest, called out softly, "Over here." He crouched beside a clump of leaves, where a torn strip of pastel-pink fabric lay half-buried in mud. His freckles stood out starkly in the beam of his flashlight. This was ripped off recently. It's still wet. The further they went, the thicker the evidence became. A crumpled protein bar wrapper. Footsteps, small ones and large ones, trampled into the soft earth. Then, finally, a clearing. Raymond swept his light across the ground. A makeshift campsite lay abandoned, an old tarp, a half-empty water bottle, and scattered rags. But what made Emily's breath catch was the small, cracked phone lying in the dirt. She picked it up. The screen flickered, struggling to cling to life. One unread message glowed faintly. "Move the girl tonight. Can't risk her being found." Dylan swallowed hard. He was going to take her somewhere else. "Not anymore," Emily murmured, her voice tight. Valor barked once, a sharp, commanding sound, then moved toward a different trail branching deeper into the trees. His body trembled, but his eyes burned with purpose. Something ahead frightened him, but something else, the need to protect, pushed him forward. He began to limp down the second path. Emily hurried behind him. "Where are you leading us, boy?" Before Valor could go far, a burst of static crackled through Raymond's radio. "Unit 2, this is dispatch. Urgent update." Raymond pressed the button. "Go ahead." "We have new tire tracks near the West Road," dispatch reported. "Multiple officers believe the suspect may be circling back. Toward the city." Toward the city. Toward the station. Toward the girl. Emily froze. "He's going back," she whispered. "He's going back to finish what he started." Valor growled, soft but certain. His body trembled with rage and fear. The team exchanged horrified looks as the truth carved itself into the night air. The man they were hunting might already be heading toward the coma, little girl sleeping under the pink blanket inside their own station. The Denver Police Department felt different when Emily Carter sprinted back through its corridors. The wind outside had risen, turning sharp and restless, rattling the window panes like impatient fingers. The temperature had dropped even more since they left for the forest, and the cold now pressed against the building, seeping in through every crack. Denver's nightlife continued somewhere beyond these walls. Sirens in the distance, engines echoing down empty avenues. But here, inside the station, the silence felt dangerous. The little girl, still unconscious, had been moved earlier into a secure interview room that officers used during sensitive cases. It wasn't meant to comfort, but it was safe. The room had no exterior windows, only one door, and a small camera in the corner. She lay curled on a narrow cot, wrapped tightly in a pastel-pink blanket that softened the harsh, sterile lines of the room. Her small face was still pale, but at least her breathing had steadied. Officer Sarah Whitfield sat beside her, long legs crossed, back straight despite the exhaustion creeping into her bones. The overhead light cast soft shadows over her warm brown eyes, which never strayed far from the girl. Sarah had shed her tactical vest earlier, revealing a more delicate frame beneath the uniform, though her posture remained firm, unyielding. She wasn't going to let anything happen to this child. Losing her own sister years ago had turned protection into a kind of sacred duty. Outside, the wind howled again. Emily stood in the doorway watching them for a breath. Her own uniform was streaked with dirt from the forest. A loose strand of brown hair had escaped her ponytail and clung to her cheek. She brushed it away, exhaled, and stepped back into the hallway. That was when she heard it. The scrape. It was faint, barely audible over the hum of the fluorescent lights, but it was real. A dragging sound, like someone, moving where they shouldn't be. Then came the second sound, a soft, metallic click. Emily's muscles tightened. She turned sharply toward the corridor leading to the back of the station. Valor was already there. The German shepherd, patched, bandaged, and exhausted, had somehow pulled himself from the medical room. The IV line still dangled from his wounded leg, clinking softly as it dragged across the floor. His chest heaved, but his stance was firm, protective. His ears angled toward the rear exit, every muscle taut despite the pain. "Valor," Emily whispered. "What did you hear?" The dog growled, a deep, vibrating sound that rumbled through the hallway like distant thunder. His fur bristled, not in aggression, but in warning. Before Emily could decide what to do, the back exit door rattled. A shadow moved behind the frosted glass. Emily's pulse kicked into a sprint. She immediately reached for her radio, but Valor was already charging forward. His injured leg buckled, but he forced himself, upright again, driven by something primal and something deeply loyal. Officer Joseph Langford rounded the corner just in time to see Valor bolting toward the exit. His sharp blue eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. "What's going on?" "Movement outside," Emily hissed. "Someone's here." Langford drew his sidearm with military precision. "I'm with you." Raymond Holt appeared from the right hallway, beard bristling as his jaw tightened. The man could read danger the way others read weather. "I'll cover the flank." Sarah, hearing the commotion, emerged from the secure room, her expression carved from steel. "I'm not leaving her." "Stay with the girl," Emily told her. Sarah nodded and disappeared back inside. Then the exit door creaked. A tall figure stood silhouetted against the flickering orange glow of the parking lot lamps. Heavy boots, broad shoulders, a hood pulled low over the face, and in his right hand, something metallic, long, narrow, catching the light. A pry bar. Emily's breath caught. He wasn't just sneaking around. He was trying to force his way into the station. "Police, don't move!" Langford shouted, voice slicing through the cold air. The figure jerked back, startled, but not surrendering. He turned sharply, scanning for escape. Valor lunged. Despite the pain, despite the exhaustion, the German shepherd sprinted toward the man with a burst of raw instinct, his growl rising into a sharp, furious bark. The hooded man panicked and stumbled backward, dropping the pry bar with a metallic clang. "Get your hands where—" Raymond's shout was cut short as the intruder bolted toward the far end of the parking lot. "Valor, stay!" Emily yelled. But Valor didn't stay. He chased. The intruder glanced back, eyes wide beneath the shadow of his hood. He vaulted over a low concrete barrier, and Valor followed, landing hard, yelping, but continuing forward with terrifying determination. "Langford! Cut him off!" Emily shouted. The team fanned out, boots slamming against pavement, radios crackling, the cold air burning their lungs. Then the world split in two. A loud, sharp explosion of sound cracked through the night. A single gunshot, echoing across the parking lot in a violent ripple. "Valor!" Emily screamed, her voice tearing itself from her throat. The echo hung in the air like a suspended blade. Lights flickered, wind howled. No one moved for a heartbeat that lasted far too long. And just beyond the parked vehicles, where darkness pooled like ink, something or someone had fallen. The gunshot still echoed in Emily Carter's ears as she sprinted across the dimly lit parking lot. The cold Denver wind bit into her lungs with every breath, and the sting of icy air blurred into the raw fear pounding through her veins. Flashlights cut through the darkness in erratic beams as officers converged on the spot where the shadowy intruder had fallen. Tires from patrol units screeched at the far end of the lot. Backup arriving just seconds too late to prevent the chaos, but in time to secure it. The hooded man lay sprawled on the asphalt, tall, wiry, and pale beneath the streetlight. His hood had fallen back, revealing gaunt cheeks, scruffy brown facial hair, and a pair of wild eyes that darted around like a trapped animal. He looked to be in his late 30s, skin weathered, hands trembling from adrenaline and cold. His frame suggested a man who had lived too long under stress, someone accustomed to running, hiding, surviving in the margins. Later they would learn his name was Brent Halpern, a drifter with a history of petty crimes and a darker record sealed in juvenile archives. For now, he was simply the man who tried to steal a child. A metal pry bar clattered a few feet away from him. But Emily wasn't looking at the man. She was looking for the dog. Valor stood a short distance ahead of the suspect, upright, defiant, though his legs shook violently beneath him. The German shepherd's fur bristled along his spine, tail low but unwavering. Blood from his reopened wound dripped onto the pavement in slow, steady drops. But his eyes, dark, sharp, burning with purpose, never left the suspect. Even with his body failing him, Valor stood between the man and the station door, as if daring him to move again. Officer Joseph Langford approached from the left, firearm drawn but steady. His jaw clenched beneath the pale glow of the lot's lamps. "Weapon down," he ordered firmly, even though Brent had already collapsed and the gunshot had not hit him. The shot belonged to another officer, a warning round fired into the air by Officer Raymond Holt when Brent attempted to swing the pry bar toward Valor. Raymond himself now strode forward with long, powerful steps, sweat beading at his temples despite the freezing air. His beard bristled as he snarled, "Hands where we can see them." Raymond's protective instincts, forged in a brutal childhood, made him the last man anyone wanted to threaten a child in front of. Brent complied with shaking hands. Within seconds, Langford and Raymond wrestled him into handcuffs, their movements efficient and practiced. Two younger officers arrived, a pair of siblings, the Marsh twins, both tall with lean builds and identical short blonde hair. They weren't major characters in this story, simply reliable officers known for their synchronized teamwork. They guided Brent toward the patrol car under Raymond's dark glare. As soon as the suspect was secured, Emily dropped to her knees beside Valor. She didn't realize she had tears in her eyes until one slipped down her cheek. "You stubborn, incredible boy," she whispered, running trembling fingers through the matted fur behind his ears. "You didn't have to do that again." Valor leaned his weight into her hand, his breath rattling unevenly. His entire body quivered, but he kept looking toward the station door, toward the little girl. "Let's get him inside." Sarah Whitfield's voice rang out as she rushed from the building. Her long brown hair swung behind her. Her warm eyes were wide with worry. Together, she and Emily helped Valor back toward the station, Joseph Langford hovering protectively beside them, ready to lift the dog if his legs gave out. Inside, the lights seemed brighter than before. Sharp, warm, almost too alive compared to the cold outside. A medic waited by the entrance, a petite woman named Nora Vasquez, with short black curls framing her round, soft face. She wore a white medical jacket over her uniform and carried a calm, capable air. She had joined the department after losing a cousin to violence, turning her grief into a career of saving others. "Put him here," Nora urged, setting out fresh medical supplies. "We'll stabilize him." But Valor refused to lie fully down. His ears flicked, and his eyes darted toward the hallway where the secure room waited, toward the girl he had nearly died to protect. Emily exchanged a glance with Sarah. "She's still asleep. She doesn't know any of this happened." Nora cleaned the reopened wound gently, murmuring soft reassurances. "He's lost more blood than I like, but he's still fighting. He's got a will of iron." "He saved her twice," Sarah whispered. "He won't rest until he sees she's safe." As if hearing them, Valor let out a low, exhausted whine and pushed himself upright again. Emily sighed, voice cracking. "All right, but slowly." The hallway to the secure room was short, but each step Valor took was a battle. Emily and Sarah flanked him protectively, while Langford followed behind, watchful and steady. When they reached the room, Emily opened the door as quietly as she could. The little girl stirred under her pink blanket. Her eyes fluttered open, wide, blue, frightened. For a moment she didn't move. Her breath caught. Then, in a trembling whisper, she asked, "Where's Valor?" Emily knelt beside her cot. "He's right here. He's safe. He's waiting." The girl's hands shook as she pushed herself up. She wore new clothes now, soft and clean, but still a pastel-pink coat. Someone had found one in storage to replace the ruined one. She slid off the cot, unsteady but determined. Valor stepped forward. She ran to him, not fast, not strong, but with all the fragile bravery her small body could muster, and wrapped her arms around his neck. "You didn't leave me," she whispered, burying her face in his fur. Valor nudged her gently, tail thumping once against the floor. Even exhausted, even hurt, he seemed whole in her presence. The moment held the entire room still. Then footsteps sounded outside. The door opened, and Chief Donovan Reeves entered. A tall African-American man in his late 50s, with salt and pepper hair cropped close and a neatly kept mustache. He carried authority without raising his voice. His deep-set eyes conveyed experience, decades of leading officers through danger and tragedy. Reeves had a reputation for fairness and an almost paternal strength, though rumors whispered that he once lost a son to violence, a wound that had shaped his fierce commitment to justice. The chief approached slowly, a solemn respect in his posture. He held a small silver badge shaped like a dog's shield, polished so bright it caught the overhead lights like a spark. "For bravery beyond duty," he said quietly, "we award K-9 Valor this honor." He knelt, something no one expected, and clipped the badge onto Valor's collar. The girl watched, eyes shining, her hand still resting on the dog's back. Reeves turned to the grieving but grateful family who had arrived moments earlier, voices trembling as they thanked every officer in the room. "If you wish," Reeves said gently, "Valor may come home with you. But in this department, He will forever remain an honored hero. The girl hugged Valor tighter, tears sliding down her cheeks. "We'll take care of him," her mother whispered, a woman with gentle features and golden hair, much like her daughter's. Her father, tall, sturdy, with tired eyes, nodded firmly. Later, as the afternoon sun broke through the Denver clouds, Emily watched from the station steps as the girl in her pastel-pink coat sat beside Valor on the warm concrete. His new badge glittered on his collar each time he shifted. Two souls who had walked through darkness, finally sitting in the light. Denver would remember this story for decades. A child rescued, justice restored, and a retired police dog who kept serving long after anyone thought he could. In the quiet glow of that Denver afternoon, as a little girl in her pastel-pink coat leaned gently against the German shepherd who saved her life, something sacred settled over the moment, something that felt far greater than bravery alone. Some people call it fate. Others call it a miracle. But many would say it was the unmistakable hand of God, guiding one wounded soul to another, weaving protection and hope exactly where it was needed most. Because sometimes, in the chaos of our everyday lives, we forget that angels don't always descend from the heavens. Sometimes, they walk on four paws, battered but unbroken, carrying light into the darkest corners we cannot face alone. And maybe, just maybe, this story is a reminder for all of us that even when the world feels cold, even when fear feels stronger than faith, God still sends help in ways we don't expect, through people, through moments, through courage, through loyalty, through the silent goodness of a creature who asks for nothing but love in return. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to cherish the miracles, big or small, that show up in your own life. Hold your loved ones closer, be kind to strangers, and trust that God is always working, even in the shadows, even when we cannot see Him yet. Before we end, I want to invite you, if you believe in the power of hope, of loyalty, of God's protection, to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe so you never miss another story that lifts the soul. And may God bless you, protect you, and watch over every step you take, just as He watched over that little girl and the brave dog who refused to leave her side. Amen.